It's still Women's Month, and we continue with our coverage of profiling women who are doing great things in their respective fields. August is dedicated to celebrating and paying tribute to thousands of women who marched to the union buildings in protest against the extension of past laws to women 65 years ago. Tonight, we are celebrating another accomplished woman, Dawn Mbata, who is the Independent Electoral Commission's Chief Financial Officer. Dawn, thank you so much for your time. A happy Women's Month to you, and thank you for joining us.
Evening, Katlego, to you and your viewers, and thank you.
It's an absolute pleasure. Now, you have enjoyed almost 20 years of being a chartered accountant, and there's been some significant growth in South Africa with regards to the number of female CASAs from 407 in 2002 to 9,650 in June last year. How has the industry evolved over time in bringing in more women being CASAs?
Katlego, I think there's a lot that still needs to be done in terms of bringing women into the space of qualified chartered accountants. The number is still very small in terms of us and our ability to service industry, be it local, be it private as well as public sector. In terms of evolving, what you will see is the numbers have grown and you're seeing more women taking up the space and qualifying. And I guess with more role models, and younger women seeing more role models in the space, hence it's also then starting to convert to more chartered accountants. When I started off, the only chartered accountant I knew was Ms. Nkululeko Gobodo. Now I can actually name a couple.
And obviously she must have been an inspiration, but what led you into going into the space?
Funny enough, it was her. The first article or the first site or the person I knew as a chartered accountant was Miss Gobodo. I think it was about in Standard 2. I think that equates to grade 6 now. I read an article and she was going on about being the first chartered accountant. And what struck me is that she was saying that, to be a chartered accountant, you need to be good at maths. And that really resonated with me. And the fact that she was the first. And I thought to myself, you know what? This is a terrain or a space that is really not being explored. And I want to be part of the space. So she was really the biggest influence over and above my father and my family to get this far.
And I'm sure over time there's been many challenges that you yourself have faced trying to navigate this male-dominated industry. What are some of those challenges that still persist for women that want to be CASAs and those that are already qualified as chartered accountants?
I think the starting point, you must understand, it's one of those qualifications, if I can say it, it's not easy. So getting into it is one thing, getting out of it is something else. And I think because there are so few, it becomes very difficult to relate, to really conceptualize what this career is about and really to go out there, find mentor, people to say, this is what it's about. It is difficult. Maybe you need to do this. That's what made it that much difficult, if I can say it that way.
And how do you then advise anyone to navigate the space in the midst of those challenges?
You need mentors. You need those that have gone before you. And I'll tell you why. It's going to help you with the challenges of actually, one, how do I navigate in a professional environment? How do I keep afloat when these studies are actually difficult? And also just to inspire you and to motivate you. And also, going out there, networking with people helps a great deal.
Now, just to speak about some of your own career highlights, you have been the CFO of the IEC since December of 2020. Your leadership has been pivotal in ensuring that you achieve 4 consecutive clean audit opinions for the institution. Just talk to us about the significance of such an accomplishment.
I think this year, I can see the other 3 years. The first time you get it, it's like, yay. Then the second time, you're like, is it really possible? And then you get it. But this one was slightly different. And I'll tell you why. This was a really, really difficult election. So we found ourselves as finance competing with a very core business at a time of delivering. Yet the elections on the 29th of May, we had to deliver our financial statements to Treasury as well as the Auditor General on the 31st of May. We were able to actually submit and deliver on the financials on the 24th. And you must understand, when we look at reporting and submitting financial statements, you're not just looking at something that's centralized. It's ability to pull through over 272 offices to submit on time so that you have financial statements to submit to the Auditor General as well as National Treasury. So having and the ability to deliver it and then get a clean audit, you must understand it's a big deal in an election year and an election of this magnitude and size. And I think most importantly, clean audit is not just your ability to report in financial statements, because, as a CA, one of the easiest things you do is financial reporting. But when the auditor comes in, they look at more than that. They look at the soundness of your controls. They look at governance. They look at your performance information and what you have reported. And for us to then say we have maintained that quality and that level and that performance in an election of this nature, I think is a big deal. And to be able to well over the statutory deadline for two entities, which is IEC as well as party funding.
And that's a huge accomplishment, but what internal controls did you then have to put in place in order to ensure that you adhere to these regulations?
Yeah. I think in terms of putting controls are something, and you must take it at different levels. There's it at a transaction level where it's what we do on a day-to-day basis to ensure that, everything is compliant with the policies and processes. Then you get to a higher level where you get more, if I can say that, more high risk, which comes in the area of procurement, where, the risk is always irregular expenditure, and there's irregular expenditure. There's always the risk that could be an MI, which is material irregularities, that really then brings in AG. But controls that we put in place, if I look at for the current year, we started planning way early. We started with our planning for this financial year. The second, if I can say that and actually exaggerate, the second the AG left. So it comes with proper planning. It comes with implementing those recommendations that are coming from the Auditor General. It also then brings in other role players who then come in and say, what are your controls in place? Let me monitor them. That's our internal audit, an internal audit department that also looks at that. But every governance role, audit committee, CEO's office, everybody comes in and ensure those processes are in place. So you look at more than just the transaction. You've got a couple of role players to ensure that the controls are in place, because we do have controls in place. It's just a matter of monitoring regularly.
And I can imagine what a mammoth task it must be for you as a CFO in ensuring that those internal controls are adhered to throughout all the offices throughout the country. When we come back to the issue of women in the space, talk to us about the importance of your male counterparts and them being allies in ensuring that those that do qualify as female CASAs also occupy spaces of leadership like the one that you occupy.
I think your male counterparts are very key in this role. If as a CA or an upcoming CA, if the one thing you can learn, your role is more than number crunching. Your ability to deliver on anything is about people, your ability to manage those relationships, even manage the relationships of those that don't like you. So your ability to have those interpersonal skills, the ability to manage those relationships with your male counterpart comes also very key in terms of your success, because delivering something like a clean audit or running a functional organization of the magnitude of the IEC is less about you and more about the relationships that you have with these colleagues, with your male counterparts.
Lastly, Dawn, if there is any young girl who's sitting at home wanting to be the next Nonkululeko Koboto or the next Dawn Mbata, what advice would you give to them in terms of the soft skills that they need and what path they need to take to become a CASA?
Yeah, I think I could say to a younger me or a younger woman out there, you know what? Don't be scared of bringing yourself into whatever you're doing. And I'll say that deliberately because, if I look at myself, I'm not a typical number cruncher who's dull and whatever. I've brought in my personality. I'm lively, I'm energetic, I'm goal-driven. Always bring that to the table. Don't try to conform to what people need you to be. And another thing that you need to do is working hard, building those relationships. If you can work on building that relationship, you can go far. The CASA qualification will open the door for you to get into the door. But when you're in the door, it's the relationships, it's your network, it's that IQ, your ability to manage difficulty and handle pressure and not crack. So that's what I would say to someone young who's out there to aspiring to a CA.
All right, Dawn Mbata, thank you so much for your time. Very inspiring, and I certainly do hope that those young CASAs looking up to people like you are certainly inspired today. Thank you so much for your time.